It's time to hit the road and discover Texas with Annie Studebaker. Get ready to travel deep into the heart of the Lone Star State, meeting friendly folks and exploring fascinating places. Experience a way of life like nowhere else in the world as we uncover the rich history and culture of Texas. Discover adventure, discover excitement, discover Texas with Annie Studebaker.
A good friend of mine, Mark Brown Jr., and 3 of his buddies organized a special trip to Laguna Madre so I could get hands-on experience with duck hunting. They also brought 2 hunting dogs, and boy was I impressed. These dogs, Henry and Hottie Toddy, were truly remarkable when it came to duck retrieval. They knew exactly what to do and when to do it. I also learned about decoys, duck calls, and much more. Let's get started and discover Texas together. We're here at Port Mansfield, and we are about to get on this airboat here and go duck hunting. So this will be a first for me. I'm looking forward to it. And we're waiting for some friends, and we'll be ready to go. It was still dark when we drove off to the boat ramp. I was very excited and looked forward to the boat ride because I had never been on an airboat before. What an awesome trip. Henry and Hottie Toddy, the hunting dogs, were as excited as I was. They found a comfortable spot on the airboat and off we went. There was a cool northwest wind and it was overcast, perfect for duck hunting. When we arrived to our hunting spot, we started setting up the blind. Daylight came very soon, so it was time to spread out the duck decoys. These decoys looked so real. It was a bit chilly, so I knew that the water was very cold. Luckily, we wore waders, so we did not get wet or cold at all.
My name's Matthew Innendyke. I'm from Spicewood, Texas. I've been coming down to Port Mansfield. This is my second full year, but probably the 5th year I've been down here in general to hunt. But second full year where we've done our full December and January duck season. Going to go through some of the decoys we use out in the bay here today. Difference in a few ducks. Got your teal, which are always your smaller ducks, which we like to see early in the morning, but sometimes you get some groups of them later in the day. This is a green-winged teal. They usually come from Alaska and Canada, so they're a long migrating bird, and they get pretty colored up and very marked out this time of year, especially into January. The plumage on them is wonderful. It's a cinnamon teal. Like we said earlier, you don't see too many of them. You do find a few of them down here and a few places up north. I was fortunate enough to get 3 of them this year, but they were very much right in the very beginning of the season, and they weren't plumed out quite as good, so I haven't put one on the wall yet. These are dabbling ducks. This is your standard pintail right there. This is a Magnum pintail from Tangle Free. It's a big decoy. It's got a nice big white flash on the front and white on the back. It gets a lot of attention. This is a black duck. We use these for decoying those mottled ducks. Mottled ducks are some of the hardest ducks to decoy. They really do not like landing where there's a bunch of other ducks out there. So we kind of try to take these and set them off to the side. And you can see on this one, this is called fully flocked. So he's not just the plastic finish, he's got a little bit of fur to him. And they actually look great when it's really cold and misty out there. The rain will sparkle on these things and they look really realistic. This is a gadwall. You can see it's just a little more detail carve and a little different looking duck. But what we'd like to do usually, like when we hunted today, is we'll mainly throw a group of dabblers and teal out in the same area. And those ducks typically inhabit the same habitats and eat the same kind of things. Every once in a while you'll see some of the diver ducks with them. The main diver you'll see down here in Port Mansfield is this guy, the redhead. And with redhead decoys, usually we like to try to throw 20 or 30 of them in a nice tight pod and stick them out a little farther away in the deeper water, because this is a diving duck. Most of his diet's going to be on invertebrates and things like that. But he swims underwater to eat, and they travel in big, big groups. So sometimes when you're hunting redheads down here, you'll see groups of 200 of them come in at once, and it's a pretty amazing sight. Another diving duck right over there is a canvasback. Rarely do we see them down here this time of year. If you do, that's a real trophy. It's the fastest duck that there is. They fly at about 60 miles an hour, so they're a really tough shot. And they also don't like to decoy, much like the black ducks, so they're kind of hard to get in. Over here, I've got a speckled-bellied goose. Speckled bellies come down to the bay, not in huge numbers. We see a few more snows, but these are considered a much bigger trophy bird. This is a stand-up that we'll use in the water or on dry land. You just poke the stike in there and stick him on top of it, and he kind of sits there and moves around. Pretty realistic. Good-looking decoy. Also, what we like to show off here is the way we rig our decoys. This is known as a Texas rig. This was invented in either Port Mansfield or Port Aransas, Texas. Somebody came up with this. What it is 300-pound offshore leader crimped with a loop, and then we'll either use about anywhere from a 5 to an 8-ounce egg weight or a mushroom weight, and then crimp with a loop on the bottom. That way you can pick it up from either side while you're picking up your decoys out of the water. And then once you've got them all grouped together, kind of loop them all on a string like this, and tie a carabiner through it, and you've got all of your decoys easy to carry around in one bug bundle.
When we return, we will see Henry and Hottie Toddy in action. So don't go away.
Hold on to your hat. We'll be right back.
Soon after we set up the decoys, ducks were spotted. Duck calls were made, and boom, the dogs took off to retrieve the ducks. They enjoyed retrieving ducks as much as we enjoyed hunting. What a perfect match. Truly man's best friend.
Got a gadwall or a gray duck, which we haven't shot down here since December, which is pretty awesome. And a spoonbill, not a real pretty one. That's a big mature male, but he's not marked up very gorgeous.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Greg Filch. We went out with y'all today. We had a great time. We've been duck hunting and fishing and doing this our whole lives. We love coming down south to lower Laguna Madre for duck season. You get a wide variety of species of birds, lots of beautiful pintails as we saw today. One of my favorite birds to hunt. They always work pretty. They're a big bird, wise bird, very smart, great eyesight. Today they worked great. Last day of the season. Very unusual for them to perform like they did today. We're very blessed in that we're able to do this and get out there. In an airboat is very key to duck hunting. Without the shallow water access to the habitat for the hunting, by getting there via airboat, it wouldn't really be possible. I mean, we've done it before in boats, and you wouldn't enjoy it as much because you'd have to walk through a lot of mud or something where, we can pull right up next to the bank or sandbar or whatever and island, and you can get out and you're right there, 2 feet, and, we make our own brush blind and we're good. We're ready to go. And that's one of the benefits of an airboat, when you're going through the real shallow water versus, driving an outboard. You're not tearing up the seagrass bottom and things, because you're just driving. You're not having a propeller underneath the boat. So it allows you to go pretty much wherever you need to go without having a good quality airboat. It makes a big difference. Everybody down here, typically when you think of duck hunting and duck hunting dogs, everybody thinks of the Labrador. Everybody has labs. We live in Texas. It's always hot. We start hunting in September during dove season. Then we do teal season. Then we get into duck season. I've always hunted, German short-haired pointers. We also now have a poodle pointer, a 1.5-year-old that, is helping take place of Hottie Toddy, she's 7.5. This is her 8th dove season. She'll be 8 years old in March, so she's starting to slow down a little bit. But the reason why we like those dogs, they're most versatile gun dog. They don't have a long tail, so you're not getting tail splashes, and when they're shaking off in the blind, getting your gun dirty, knocking over a gun, so you don't have to worry about that. They also, down here, the climate, the weather, it changes daily. We could be hunting tomorrow and it's 85 degrees, and we could go to 38 degrees the next day. You know, one thing about the German short-haired and German type braid dogs, you know, they'll point, they'll retrieve, they love water, they have web feet, everything else that the other dogs do. They're very versatile, and they can also take the extreme heats where big labs and stuff, they have problems in South Texas when it gets real hot. But these little dogs right here, they can pretty much do anything. And you know, everybody looks at us and makes jokes. So, oh, y'all going quail hunting today or whatever? When they see us at the ramp with the airboat, and we're like, no, these are bird dogs. And these two, I'll put them up against any dogs around here, and they'll get every bird. They'll work just as well or better than any well-trained lab. And we did it all ourselves. So, you know, it's what we like to do.
More ducks in sight, and the excitement was building because I was going to shoot for the first time. I used Mark's shotgun, a 12-gauge semi-automatic with 3.5-inch Magnum shells. It took a few tries before I hit the target. What a thrill and what a kick! Henry and Hottie Toddy were very attentive. They knew exactly what to do and when to do it. Mark, Greg, Matthew, and Scott are great hunters. They have been hunting for quite some time.
My name is Mark Brown Jr. I've had the pleasure of growing up in South Texas my entire life. Enjoyed the hunting and the fishing here in Willacy County. We've had a very enjoyable duck season out here on the Laguna Madre. There's a lot of really good guides and outfitters out here. If you have any interest in hunting, call our local Chamber of Commerce, the Port Mansfield Chamber of Commerce, and they will fix you up with any hunting or fishing guide that is available. And they'll be happy to guide you in any direction for lodging or any type of outfitter that you'd like to do.
Don't go away. We will soon get to see how the ducks are prepped.
Hold on to your hat. We'll be right back.
After the duck hunt is over, ducks are prepped for transport.
Only allowed to kill one pintail per man this year. They dropped it down from 2 last year. We try and separate them a little bit here. And what we'll do is we'll just put them on these straps. And then there's 6 little lanyard holes on each one of these. So we'll create our limits. It's just easy when we get back to the ramp, everybody knows what they got. We'll do it this. That's it right there. That's the 1-man limit of ducks. We got gadwall, 3 spoonies, teal, and a pintail. So that's 1 limit.
Now it was time to park and go. That involved gathering up all the decoys, taking the blind down, and loading the airboat. Once we arrived, it was time to harvest the ducks. Scott has all the ducks lined up and ready to go. He showed me how to prep them, and it didn't look too difficult. Sure enough, the duck breast was easily exposed when a little pressure was applied. Once they were prepped, it was time to remove the breast. Scott made 2 cuts along each side of the breastbone, and then each piece was easily removed. This was not hard to do. I was surprised and grateful when he handed me the bag. They will definitely make a delicious meal.
Typically will come from
December and January and finish the season down here. Just kind of follow the migration down the Flyway Highway. And it's, most of us are based out of either San Antonio, North Texas. Mark, he's out of Raymondville or Harlingen. So he's got a shorter commute, but you got to go where the ducks are. There's quite a few of them down here.
The divers and dabblers, the main difference is just the habitat, where they hang out, and most of that has to do with their diet. Redheads and canvasbacks especially, we hunt those a little north of here in Choke Canyon, and they only inhabit 20, 25 feet of water. They don't like to come into the close shorelines or anything like that. They're very shore-wary, so one of the only ways to hunt a canvasback is out in the water. And that's mainly because their diet is invertebrates off the very bottom, so they'll sit there and swim until they see what they want, and then they'll dive 20 feet underwater to go feed down there. Dabbler ducks kind of skim the surface a little bit more and pick up more seaweed, grass, those kinds of more vegetation. They don't eat as much of the invertebrates. They also you'll see them in grain fields and places like that, where the diving ducks you won't see in a cornfield or a milo field. But black ducks are probably my favorite to get down here. That was that last one we got today, was that mottled duck. They're really hard to get to come in, but Greg and I work pretty hard at making sure we've always got 5 or 6 black duck decoys in our spread at all times. So, best eating, most people would probably tell you those teal or this black duck. He doesn't travel very far. Gadwalls, I think, taste pretty good. They tend to be a local bird. They don't fly quite as far. Pintails can be good. Pintails are the second most common duck in the world. I mean, you can shoot a pintail all the way from Siberia all the way around the northern hemisphere. They fly every single place. So some of them are local birds that don't fly as much, and some of them are birds that have flown all the way from the Arctic Circle. And some of those guys have, that's a lot of miles. It's a lot of miles of flying, so the meat can get a little tough. But teal are generally regarded as very good table duck. You peel those off the breast, stuff them in a jalapeno with some bacon and cream cheese, and they taste a lot like a duck. They're really, really good. Teal are usually the ones we find banded too. Oh, y'all didn't get a band story from Greg, did you? All the little bands on his deal. It's a band that they put on the leg of a duck. Like every once in a while we'll shoot one and it'll have a little metal band on its ankle, and it tracks the migration. You can look it up online and it'll tell you where the duck was banded, when he was born, all of that kind of information. It's pretty interesting how many times, like, you can look on there, it'll track his migration on a big map. It's pretty neat. I have yet to get one. Yeah, you got to report it. Most geese will be banned. Lots of geese are banded. They ban teal. They banned everything, but the most common ones we've seen are teal down here. And pintails. We got a banded pintail last year, Greg and I did. These are all pintail feathers. These are all the sprigs that we've pulled out of the drake pintails that we've shot this year, starting in about November. Ended up here in January, and I'll give these over to my mom. She'll probably make a Christmas wreath out of them or something like that. But it's a fun way to keep track of the good trophy birds that we've shot throughout the year. And you can see some of the early ones are a little shorter and not as colored up. Some of the late season ones will start to get the green in there and get a little bit longer, and that's how you know you got a nice trophy pintail.
It was a great adventure, one that I will never forget. Mark, Greg, Matthew, and Scott, and their dogs, Henry and Hottie Toddy, are an amazing team when it comes to duck hunting. This is Annie Studebaker with Discover Texas. Until next time.